The BBC's Top Gear sacks Jeremy Clarkson. What does that mean? Probably not much to you, but it means a lot to me. And that's why we're talking about celebrity and social responsibility today on Talking Point Live.
We're going to be talking about how the media looks at that situation, and really I am going to find out why it matters to you.
We'll stick around and we'll let you know. We'll talk about Jeremy Clarkson and many more celebrities on today's Talking Point Live. Stay with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
The power of Baja Broadband's high-speed internet service, and feed your need for speed. You know what you need from your internet service, and Baja's got it. You want faster than fast. Baja now offers speeds from 30, 60, up to 100 megs for as low as $19 more a month. Get antivirus, firewall, and spam control, all while downloading files in a flash. Unleash the power of Baja Broadband's high-speed internet service and move smarter and faster. Call Baja and start blazing new trails today. Call 1-877-422-5282 now.
There is a place where rocks bleed and nature blushes on a battlefield green with envy, where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden T holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where friends are opponents and opponents are friends, where the prize is elusive, the conquest is captivating, and the score isn't settled till the drinks are down. There is a place. There is a place where the sun doesn't hide in the winter, where the greens stay green and the crimson canyons still glow. There is a place where dimples determine destiny and a tiny wooden T holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where we drive for show, putt for dough, and settle the score with another round. There is a place.
Come on. Hey! Really, Tom?
We can't control when you'll have your Baja moment, but with reliable TV, internet, and phone, it's bound to happen.
Welcome back to Talking Point Live. We're here on the campus of Dixie State University. It's spring. We can hear the lawnmowers and the birds chirping. We're going to find out from Eric why firing Jeremy Clarkson is news.
Yeah, we'll get back to that here in just a second. Lots of campus activity going on as well. We have the Board of Regents coming on campus. We have the Dixie Fest getting ready to set up for a concert behind us. You can see on Jen's camera if you take that little activity happening back there. Okay, I just saw Jeremy Clarkson go by. Okay, so let's get to the heart of the matter here and why we're here today. I've been watching Top Gear for 20 years and been a big fan of Jeremy Clarkson, as well as Richard Hammond and James May, the three that make up the show's synergy and really the humor that goes with that. And also being a car guy, it's going to have its appeal. And we've known all along, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, that Jeremy is kind of a narcissistic bully who goes through and gets his way. What happened on the 4th of March, just a couple of weeks ago, is Clarkson decided that he wasn't satisfied with the cold plate of meat that he was presented at the end of the day of shooting on location in Surrey, England. And as a result, got into an altercation with an associate producer by the name of Ocean Tyson. And over the course of that verbal exchange, he punched him in the face. And this really is on the heels of things like going through and destroying any diplomacy between Great Britain and Argentina or Great Britain and Mexico, racial slurs that are kind of interlaced throughout programming and taping of Top Gear. So it's not a whole big surprise to see this happen. What is, I think, a good surprise, though, is that the BBC, Tony Hall, their chief executive officer equivalent that way, canned him. They fired him outright because they said this is behavior that one can't just simply go through and apologize for. And regardless of his celebrity, and by celebrity I'm talking about, he has an audience. Jeremy Clarkson, Top Gear has an audience of 60 million people in Europe, 350 million people worldwide. Wow. It's the most recognized television broadcast on the planet. Okay, even though you might not be watching it, and maybe you will now, it's, you can stream it live on Netflix, I believe, at this point. That didn't make him untouchable, and so the BBC took responsibility and said, you know, really the best action that can happen here is to go through and fire him, let him go. And this is in the middle of a television broadcast season for the BBC. They still have 2 or 3 episodes left to go through and tape. But that didn't matter. They said, no, we're going to cut it off. And as a result, Richard Hammond and James May said, well, if Jeremy's not there, we're not doing the show.
Oh,
either.
that's huge. Okay.
So
Yeah.
a pretty big tumbling effect there. And the Brits are reeling on this, as you can imagine. There's already a petition to get millions of names to go through and get them reinstated and so on. And
Well, so you make me a little bit suspicious
yeah,
because
you're thinking this is all staged.
well, because you know, reality shows, in my opinion, are heavily scripted, so they're not that reality based. Many of them are very much dramatic productions in the guise of reality.
Let's say that
Yeah.
they're heavily produced.
Okay.
You know, the script might be something, you know, because there is the spontaneity of the
Right.
exchange. So heavily produced or heavily framed.
Okay, and what you
perhaps.
mean by heavily produced is after the shooting's done, the editor assembles the piece they
No,
want?
I'm saying that
Yeah.
even in pre-production, they're
Uh-huh.
saying, we're going to make this happen and your
Right.
car's going to break down in a certain area.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of Top Gear production, it's formulaic.
Yes, okay.
Right? And after 20 years of watching
Yeah.
this, you can predict when things are going to be happening.
Okay.
Especially within their special episodes that they put out there.
Yeah, so I'm a little suspicious
Right.
then, because just supposing that they just wanted to up the numbers a little bit, although it doesn't sound like they need to, but then they pretend to fire Clarkson, and then that causes a big wave of reaction, and
Yeah.
then oh no,
I think
and see,
there's
it hits the news, right?
There's enough evidence here, though,
Yeah.
because this is certainly is a worldwide news story
Yeah.
in that respect.
Yeah.
But there's enough evidence out there. I mean, you have Ocean Tyson going to an emergency room to be treated for the injuries he sustained. They're not going to stage that. Okay.
Right.
James May, when he's coming out of his home yesterday, he's caught on camera and he says, you know, I'm getting ready to post my Ferrari for sale up on eBay. So if you please leave me alone, because they're talking about liquidating assets, you know, in
Right.
terms of what's going on. And certainly, wow, that could be staged. And there's some comic relief to that. There has to be some comic
Right.
relief to this. You've postulated that, you know, what happened they filmed a special in Argentina where the 3 of them show up with V8 exotic supercars to go through and run some kind of test with a special episode. Jeremy Clarkson shows up with a Porsche 928 with a license plate that has the letters on it, H982 FKL. Now, in 1982, the British invaded the Falkland Islands. And here comes Jeremy back with a
Or
car
if you're
that
from Argentina, the Las Malvinas.
the Las Malvinas Islands.
Yes.
They don't call them the Falkland Islands anymore.
Yeah.
But this is kind of a way of Jeremy rubbing that back into their faces. And as a result, they were attacked. Their cars were destroyed by Argentinians who weren't going to put up with them coming to their country and waving the Union Jack in their faces.
Well, I'm saying to myself, this sounds like staged conflict
Yeah, it's-
for the sake of commercial gain. It sounds kind of orchestrated and hokey to me.
I guess we won't know until we see the show. There's enough
Yeah.
behind the scenes. There's enough YouTube videos shot by Argentinians actually attacking their caravan that makes me go through and think, no, they've pushed the boundary here. They produced outside their envelope, I think,
Okay,
in what it is
maybe
they're trying
so.
to do.
Maybe
They did
so.
the same thing in the southern United States. They show up in a southern town, I think it was in Alabama, where spray painted on one of the trucks that they were man-boy lovers and they were promoting a homosexual agenda. And of course, within minutes, pickup trucks full of men in baseball bats show up to run these guys off the grounds of this gas station where they had stopped. And again, if you look at the horror in their faces and see what's going on, they push the boundaries.
You know, I'm sort of seeing a connection to Charlie Hebdo, like just
yeah,
being
yeah, that's a great connection to
offensive
make.
and demonstrating free speech just for the sake, frankly, I think, of saying I can say it if I want to say it,
Right.
and courting controversy.
Yeah, and that's where Jeremy Clarkson's narcissism, I think, crosses the line. Well, what other narcissists do we have out there, and what is a social responsibility for somebody who becomes a celebrity, and how do we define what celebrity is to begin with that way?
Well, let's talk a little bit why we're talking about the social responsibility of celebrities. Let's talk a little bit about media coverage of
Okay.
celebrities. And last week we talked about sin number 1 of the 7 deadly media sins, and that being the commercial bias, where the media wants to cover things that have novelty and conflict, which certainly the story on Top Gear has conflict.
Sure, it does.
Right, and they generate conflict apparently as part of their shtick that they do.
Is that why you're trying to generate conflict here, is to elevate our commercial appeal?
I think so.
Okay.
To be honestly truthful, yes. Yes.
All right, I interrupted you.
It's more fun when we don't agree
we
with
clash,
each other,
right.
yes. But however, a lot of times we don't agree. And in this case, I would like to say that we could talk about how news coverage, for example, a celebrity, like news coverage will create celebrities. And we're thinking of the Natalie Holloway story, where she was disappeared down in the Virgin Islands or somewhere down south. And so the news coverage went to the site. Greta Van Susteren. Yeah, Van Susteren went
Nancy
down there.
Grace.
Yeah, some of their biggest shows, because they were on site of a big controversy. And this is sin number 2, bad news. Join us in just a minute. When we come back from break, we'll talk a little bit more about media coverage of celebrities.
We'll be right back.
Wow. College already.
Yeah. We gotta go.
I love you.
I love you too, Daddy. And thanks for everything.
Gratitude. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you. There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
There is a place where young and old make connections, where kids feel like grown-ups, and grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast, where wonder is universal, and laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future, families find each other, and feelings find their home. There is a place.
Man, I think I want to move to St. George. It looks like a nice place to live.
It is a beautiful
It feels like the
place.
show is brought to you by the St. George Chamber of Commerce as things go. So we left you before the break with the idea of the victimization of somebody who's abducted, this Holloway, and then news individuals coming in and really capitalizing on the story in order to maybe become self-promoting as far as Nancy Grace and perhaps Greta Van Susteren is concerned.
You know, this tendency to promote oneself, I think, might be endemic too in the information industry. So Brian Williams, for example, we're going to talk about him a little bit later. But what I wanted to point out is that this Natalie Holloway story, besides building careers for people because they were covering it, is also this factor of bad news sells.
Right.
So that's our second media sin. And what I wanted to briefly plug before I forget this week is Brooke Gladstone's book,
Gladstone.
The Influencing Machine. And she talks about the media bias, media bias in here, and among lots of other fascinating topics. And I'm going to be using this as for some background and context as we go along. But let's talk a little bit about celebrity responsibility again and privilege.
Okay.
And now that we mentioned, you know, the Holloway story and how it was manipulated, really, or exploited.
Well, we came to know Nancy Grace and Greta Van Susteren on the heels of this tragedy of the bad news. But there are other celebrities out there who seem to go through and capitalize on their positions as well. Not the least of which was Lance Armstrong. I used to produce content for the professional cycling world in Northern Europe at the time, and Lance Armstrong was just beginning his career, and he was so promising. And then he comes down with testicular cancer, and then becomes this incredible underdog that's able to go through and beat the odds. In fact, 8 different times, 7 consecutive Tour de France wins, 8 wins altogether, only to find out that he lied about his doping scheme. In fact, that he was also participating in drug delivery to other athletes out there.
Right.
So here you have an individual who's established a legacy when it comes to a philanthropic approach to cancer treatment and to helping out other people, only to find out that he was corrupt to begin with all along. He was abusive. He countersued people who tried to go through and take down his image. And with that, we lose any kind of faith in somebody trying to go through it perhaps and do the same thing.
Yes, Alex Gibney made a powerful film in 2013 called The Armstrong Lie. And he covered Armstrong in a personal way. And when he started the documentary, the allegations against Armstrong for the last race had not surfaced yet in a powerful way. And you can see that because of his celebrity and his philanthropic efforts, and that's an interesting combination, because how reticent would you be to undermine someone who is a philanthropic leader?
And a survivor of cancer at the same time.
Right. So he really did use his celebrity, and like you mentioned, he used it to have power to socially scorn anybody who really argued his ethics, and a lot of money to sue people and really drive them into bankruptcy in order to defend their claims against him.
And this happened over the course of years.
Yes.
And we're talking about a widespread devastation, a lot of people victimized just by this guy's own narcissism. Oscar Pistorius as well. He was an Olympic athlete, and what made him unusual was the fact that he's an amputee, the first Paralympic athlete. He set all kinds of world records, only later on to discover that he shot to death his girlfriend, and now is serving a life sentence as a result of the crime that happened there.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a manslaughter charge, which was only 5 to 10 years.
No, from what in my research,
Just
that
recently?
that it's in.
All right.
Pistorius claimed that he thought it'd be an intruder. Pistorius was found guilty of culpable homicide and is currently serving time, and the verdict has been appealed. So that's where he's at. That way. The time being served, I think, is a life sentence with that. My point being is, what's the danger when we end up pedestalizing athletes like Tiger Woods or Kobe Bryant, or we take news personalities as well. Dan Rather, for me, like Jeremy Clarkson, that was a given. Dan Rather, to me, was my generation's
Walter Cronkite.
I was going to say Edward R. Murrow coming up, but he's the one who inspired me to become a journalist in that respect. Wrote a great book called The Camera Never Blinks, and then during the George W. Bush administration, he makes a simple mistake here, and it wasn't anything out of malice. Maybe it was, I don't know. But he did not vet a document that implicated George W. Bush in a certain scandal.
Okay.
And when those documents were then investigated, they discovered that they were falsified. And as a result, Dan Rather loses his credibility as a journalist, and he resigns first off from CBS Evening News, and then a while later he resigned from CBS News altogether because he just did not have the credibility to come back and say that's the way it is.
Well, maybe we put too much on celebrities. Maybe we admire them too much and we ask too much. They're just people that happen to be in the limelight.
There's a referent power that we give to them, though. The I want to be like Mike power. And that's what I did with Dan Rather, and certainly we have millions of young people doing that with athletes that are out there. The problem with that is, as soon as we do that, as soon as we go through and pedestalize somebody, we give a sense of our own identity, our own power away. And that becomes especially problematic if we're dealing with religious leaders who topple off the pedestal and don't have any place to go through and
So
recover.
we have to be careful who we set up on a pedestal, who we admire, who we pattern our lives
Or
after.
maybe not pedestalize anybody,
Okay.
but look for good works of people
Okay.
and see what they're doing. That's what we're going to be talking about when we come back after this break. You're watching Talking Point Live. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Unleash the power of Baja Broadband's high-speed internet service and feed your need for speed. You know what you need from your internet service and Baja's got it. You want faster than fast. Baja now offers speeds from 30, 60, up to 100 megs for as low as $19 more a month. Get antivirus, firewall, and spam control, all while downloading files in a flash. Unleash the power of Baja Broadband's high-speed internet service and move smarter and faster. Call Baja and start blazing new trails today. Call 1-877-422-5282 now.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
Come on. Hey! Really, Tom?
We can't control when you'll have your Baja moment, but with reliable TV, internet, and phone, it's bound to happen.
Welcome back.
Yes,
Here we
welcome
are.
back to Talking Point Live. So we're going to be talking about celebrity responsibility.
We talked about the idea of pedestalization. When we
Right.
pedestalize somebody, what
It sounds a lot like another word.
do we? I think I just made that word up, actually. When we put somebody
Pedestal.
on a pedestal.
Yes.
The pedestalization of something.
Yes. And what we want to do is not only talk about putting people up there and being careful about who we admire, what we expect from people. I think allowing for fallibility and for redemption, frankly. I'm a big fan of redemption.
Well, to understand
Yeah.
the context of all that too, what does it mean to be a celebrity in terms of privacy? Not being able to be a private person on any level anymore, unless you
Right.
have the wealth to go through and build the fences and keep other people out. of
Right.
that. We all know what happened with Lady Di as far as that kind of privacy is concerned.
Right. It might have led to her death, that pursuit of,
yeah.
of invasion of her privacy. Yes.
But there are some bright spots in all this. We've talked about the negative side of this. What I want to talk about is those who do take on some level of social responsibility. There are a couple that are not on my list here that I'm going to get to in just a minute, but I do want to bring them up. Denzel Washington is a great philanthropist and lends his efforts and his wealth to the equalization in certain societies as far as race is concerned.
Okay.
George Clooney is another, and I know there's some eyeballs rolling at this point, but Clooney brings to the forefront really one of the biggest conflicts we have on the planet, and that's what's happening in the Middle East, and he does that consistently through the types of films that he produces, like Syriana, for example. That really got us thinking critically about the implications of what's happening in the Middle East.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned feature film production
all right.
as a media source and as an important element of public discourse, because sometimes, partly because you're a little bit of a news junkie, but sometimes we forget that magazines, feature films, music.
Well, I'm a movie junkie more
Yes.
than I'm a news junkie.
Okay, well, so sometimes we forget to talk about how important.
You're a film junkie too.
I am.
You're a documentary junkie.
Yes, I am.
I'm just giving you a bad time.
Yes, you are.
I'm sorry, I've interrupted you, talking over you again.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
That's an agreement we have, right?
Right.
We can do that.
We can talk over each other.
We can.
Go ahead. I'll shut
So,
up.
what I was going to say is, sometimes we forget to mention these other forms of media. right? And how important they are in public discourse. And you mentioned feature film production. And I really do believe, and I think maybe you do too, that they convey heavily our value systems, our concerns and fears, and maybe they have a freedom to do so differently than, say, for example, news and magazine production.
What's interesting to me about that, though, there are certain news organizations who will very quickly dismiss any celebrity endorsement or any celebrity attempt at going through and qualifying and maybe even quantifying what's actually happening out there.
Why
and
is
blow
that?
it up.
Why do they resent?
Well,
I don't understand that.
Because there are lots of celebrities who throw a lot of money behind a lot of politicians who don't happen to line up on whatever side these news channels line up on.
Okay, all right.
And so they become easy targets.
So they don't like their politics. Whoever's criticizing them for having a voice
certainly it boils
doesn't like
down
their
to
politics.
the conservative versus liberal, and of course
Okay.
everybody in Hollywood has to be a liberal. That's just prerequisite to get your Hollywood card these days.
Yes.
Apparently. There are other liberals, if you will, that have made some amazing contributions, not the least of which Angelina Jolie. She's a Goodwill ambassador to the United Nations Refugee Council. Her and her husband Brad Pitt have put up millions of dollars in a global action campaign to go through and improve things. This might come as some surprise. Lady Gaga.
Right. Yes, that's a surprise.
Ryan Huskins was telling me, our associate producer, every picture he could find of her was her covered in meat somewhere along the line, but he found well, I think maybe it's already come up there. She is very active in donating, raising over $200 million in support of various HIV/AIDS programs. Oprah Winfrey, she's donated from her own pocket over $40 million of her own personal fortune to the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. Bono, Live Aid is part of his. Elton John, who set up the Elton John AIDS Foundation in 1992. Annie Lennox from Greenpeace, or works with Greenpeace, the British Red Cross, Amnesty International, and Nelson Mandela's foundation as well. She's received the British Services to Humanity Award in 2008. In fact, I think she's also been made a lady as a result of that. Much as Jackie Chan, who would have thought? He's a UNICEF Goodwill ambassador, raised over $3.3 million through a charity concert for Japanese victims of the 2011 tsunami. Salman Khan, he's an Indian actor who set up his own charitable trust and NGO called Being Human to aid underprivileged children in India. We talked about Lady Di. Hugh Jackman, an Australian actor. I think we're all familiar with him with a certain role that he plays that way. He and his wife are set up funds to take care of a bone marrow institute in Australia. So
you have quite a list there. And I just want to make one point about you using your iPad for that list. No, and this is not a criticism.
Okay.
It's a transparency note about media production. Okay. A lot of times you will have your host, your anchor, if it's news, or your host, apparently has all the command of all the facts in their memory, in their brain. And the reason they appear to have it all in their brain is because they are reading a teleprompter.
They have and there's no teleprompters here.
And the teleprompter, we could have a teleprompter, and
Right.
we have used them in the past to help us track along and remember facts.
But going live, we decided not to.
We decided not to live, and we also are being transparent about the fact that we do not have all the facts locked into our brains. We're not trying to promote ourselves as more intelligent than we are. And so it is very clear, you read off your iPad, I read off some prepared notes.
You're still analog.
I promote other scholars' works, okay? But so what we're doing is we're just curating for you and bringing to you, besides sharing our own opinions.
I've got one more bright spot, though.
Okay.
Even though I got through my comprehensive list here. How much time do we have?
Quite a list it was.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, tell you what, I've posted Emma Watson's United Nations talk on our site, the he for she talk that she gave to the United Nations. It's worth taking a look at. This is one of our brighter spots, I think, as far as social responsibility is concerned. Remarkable individuals who go through and try to make some kind of a difference that way.
Thank you for being with us for Talking Point Live.
Before we wrap it up, be sure to catch Dixie State University baseball. It'll be broadcast live on cable channel 22 on broadcast on Baja cable there. Also live on Southern Utah Live. It's a paid for subscription that way. You've been watching Talking Point Live, coming to you live from the campus at Dixie State University. We'll see you next week at 10 o'clock. Thanks for joining us.